Well, good evening and welcome to Coffee with Rich. Although tonight we're not having coffee, we've poured ourselves a drink. There we are. We have Minnesota Maker in the house. A little bit of Jack Daniels, a little bit of Coke goes a long way. On the panel tonight, we have our usual house of suspects. And first and foremost, we have Brian Baker. Well, let's say hello, Brian.
Hello, everyone. How's it going? Happy Saturday. Oh, man, I got one more day on the weekend. Yes.
And also joining us tonight from the Canadian Maker Project here on YouTube is Ron Manziuk.
Hi, everybody. How y'all doing? And as the same, I brought in the Bacardi. So... and the Coke, so I'm happy.
And there goes our monetization. So send us money.
You can send money at.
All right.
Links down
who
below.
do we have here tonight? We've got Minnesota Maker. Hello, sir. We've got Paul Taylor from Waterloo. We've got Johnny Gardner. Howdy from Mississippi, he says. And there's Richard Taylor. Good evening, Mr. Cleveland. And last but not least, the incomparable Mr. Mark L. Taylor. Good evening, sir. I don't know if Mark's in the house or he's in the garage doing some printing, so we'll have to find out. Hey, there's Phil Morris as well. Phil just got himself a Prusa Mark III, I believe.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the pictures. It looks nice.
Let's go ahead and we'll run that intro, and then we'll come right back and we'll jump right into the questions tonight.
What a great intro we have.
I know. You know, we're going to have to change it up to be like a beer glass when we do the Saturday night stuff. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show this evening. We're going to be tackling your 3D printing questions tonight. Ron, Brian, and myself are all here to answer your questions. We've gotten a few on YouTube, and I don't always get time to answer them. So, as you guys probably know, this show is normally done at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, but through the month of December, we are going to be doing it at 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time in the evening because we are really, really busy at Spool 3D. And today there was no shortage of people in the shop, that's for sure. So we've got Ken Strock. Welcome, sir. He says morning to y'all. I guess Ken still thinks it's morning, but first and foremost, Danny Moritz. I want to put this question out to everybody on our panel tonight. He says, when I try to start a print, I receive the following error. Marlin 1.1.9. Receive echo in querying M600. Receive error hot end too cold. Changing monitoring state from printing to error hot end too cold. Changing monitoring state from error hot end too cold to offline error hot end too cold. So my answer to that is your hot end is too cold.
Question.
Anybody else?
Where is he printing it? Is he printing it like outside or is he printing it like inside?
You know, I think probably what's happening is either his heater cartridge is not working or he's getting misinformation through his thermistor.
What's happening is, I can actually say it. Do you have a filament runout sensor? Because M600 is the filament change algorithm, and it will try to eject filament if it doesn't detect it. But if the extruder is too cold, if it's below the 180 when you power it first up, it's not going to eject the filament and throw the error.
There you go. I knew somebody on this panel tonight would have an answer for that.
Google is your friend.
Google is your friend.
Yeah.
Ken Strock says, just purchased a Creality CR10 S5 waiting on delivery. Anything I should look out for or need to do? Well, first of all, get yourself a really big bench to set it up on because it's not going to fit on any normal size bench. Secondly, be aware that your heated zone is only 300 by 300, even though you have a 500 by 500 build plate. So those are the two things that I would watch out for. What about you, Brian?
Watch out for me. Because I like to tell people to mod things. So watch out for me.
Don't listen to Brian. What do you say, Ron?
I say, don't listen to Brian.
I concur. Is that what the panel's going to be tonight?
No, but honestly, I would also look at, when you get the printer, have a look under the bottom. Make sure it's insulated. If it's not insulated, get some insulation. It'll save you a lot of headaches in the long run. Because if your bed is not heating up properly, and I know this from owning a CR10, that the old CR10s never came up with any type of insulation. So when you heat up your bed, it takes twice as long as without insulation. So, if you can't afford it a little bit, put some under there. It'll make heating up your bed a lot more easier and a lot more stressful and less like pulling out your hair going, why the hell is this thing not heating?
I think that the 500 does come with a heated insulated bed, but again, like I said, it's only a 300 by 300 heated zone. This is the one thing that bothers me about Creality in the respect of anything over the 300 size. If you look at the bottom of that plate, it's an aluminum plate glued to the actual aluminum heat plate. And that heated plate is right in the very center. I don't know why they just didn't put a fully heated plate on there. I think probably because they wanted to keep the cost down on the power supply, because it's the same power supply that's in the CR10S.
So it's using a 12 volt.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Well, if you're only heating a 300 by 300 zone, you only need a 12 volt.
True. I mean, the thing I like about the Under 3 is at least it's 24 volt, and it's even a smaller bed.
And see, that makes no engineering sense to me whatsoever on the fact of Creality. I mean, they went from a 12 volt power supply on their larger machines to a 24 volt on this small little machine. Why not take that 24 volt and put it into the bigger machines?
I think that's their plan, but let's just say that the base Creality board is not really built for 24 volts, even though it's labeled for it. I'm going to say no.
So Jeff Collins is having trouble with heat creep. Any suggestions to solve this? Printer is a CR10S. Yes. My biggest suggestion to you, Jeff, and we're going to be covering some of this in our top 10 gifts for Christmas. Go out, get yourself a Micro Swiss all metal hot end and change the fan to a ball bearing fan from the existing sleeve bearing fan. Your heat creep is going to go down. Your prints will get better. You'll get virtually no under extrusion. Anybody else?
I would say, yeah, same idea. But also check to make sure. Now, I've heard kind of a controversy over this. Okay. I'm not sure if everybody agrees with me. I've heard some people say there are 3 screws that go into the bottom of the heat block. 2 of them were supposed to be removed after factory, they say. And it's supposed to be only 1 screw there. Some people haven't experienced heat creep, and all you have to do is just back off those 2 screws that are on the heating block, and that can actually stop the heat creep from happening. Now, I don't know how much of that is true or not, but that's
I'm going to debunk what you just said.
I've heard it from others, that's all.
Yeah, there's a gentleman out there who did a video on this recently, and he actually tested it with a thermometer of some sort to see exactly how hot that hot end actually gets up beyond the throat. And there was no heat creep whatsoever from those screws. According to Creality, those screws have to be in there. They're there for a reason, so don't take them out.
Okay. No, I just heard it. I was like going, could it be? Maybe. I don't know. So that's why that's what kind of shocked me about it.
It's a bit of a poor design all around. I think the Micro Swiss all metal hot end is a better replacement on the CR10S and CR10S5s and 4s as well. Just because of the way it's designed, it keeps that cold zone cold and it keeps the hot zone hot. And you don't get a lot of fluctuation. You may get a degree swing on either side of the temperature you're targeting, but that's about it.
Okay. Another question then, since we are talking about heat creep.
Yep.
Fans itself. Now, I've heard some people say Natra fans or no, don't go Natra fans. Your guys' pick?
Mm,
This is a big subject. Brian, you want to touch that one?
Noctuas are excellent fans for their silence, and they will meet the base requirements for most printers for PLA and other cooler materials. When you get to PETG, I'm starting to question if it's capable, if it can still handle it. But I think for a lot of people, it's a good starting point. It's an expensive starting point. I think you should try starting with a ball bearing fan and just see if the noise is acceptable, and even consider putting in a little reducer resistor, something small, or even a diode like that drops 0.7 volts off it, just to see if that noise threshold will drop.
Gotcha. I think as far as I've seen, I've not upgraded any of my 3D printers with a Noctua fan. I have done it for other people, however. It seems to work fine. However, again, I agree with Brian. When you're starting to get into those upper temperature plastics, PETG, nylons, things like that, I don't think it's an adequate source of cooling because it just doesn't move enough air. Yes, it's quiet, but it doesn't move enough air. So I think by going to a higher CFM fan that is a ball bearing fan, yes, you're going to get some noise, but at the end of the day, you want a better print. So you got to give up something.
Yeah, I just thought I would bring it up since we were talking about fans and everything else, and I just
it's a great question.
Yeah.
Mr. Buttram says that the Creality stock extruder is where I start questioning all the engineering abilities. Let's pull the filament inlet right next to the moving screw, and I mean right next to it. Yeah, I agree with you there. It is a really poor design. I've seen those hot ends clog up so many times. And what happens with that particular unit is that when you get past that throat and into the cooling area, for whatever reason, the way that it's designed is it's a little bit bigger on that throat that's on the inside than the actual outer diameter of the PTFE liner that's going into it. So what happens is that area fills up with plastic and it just kind of sits there. And then over time, it starts to break down and it'll start to clog your nozzles. So I agree that that is a bit of a problem. And again, the solution is an $80 to $85 upgrade. I hate to say that to you, but it is. And that's by going to the Micro Swiss direct replacement for the CR10S, the 4 and the 5 as well. It's something that we've talked about on the show quite a bit, and we've got a video where I installed it. So, and there's a question regarding that, and we'll cover that in a bit too. So we've got a question here. I have a Micro Swiss all metal hot end on my Ender 3. This is from Paul Taylor, and the manual says to reduce retraction quite a bit. I did this, but I no longer can print PETG without air everywhere. Any suggestions? Yes. Two things affect stringing or hair. One is heat, 2 is retraction, and 3 is speed. Okay, so there's 3 things, not 2 things. First, your heat has to be in that 240, 245 zone. Your retraction has to be just play with it. Don't listen to what they say in the manual. Every printer is different. Every situation, every environment in which your printer is in is different from the guy next to you. So what I would say to you is just play around with those settings a little bit. You may have to up your retraction a little bit, and you might want to print either a little bit faster or a little bit slower. It all depends. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I found with mine, I'm printing stuff like what is it I'm printing? Forma Futura PETG, and I found 225 is the temperature I'm using on my hot end, and I found that I set the retractions up a little bit more than normal, and I've actually did a little bit of did a few changes in the my profile. I can't remember what else I did in the changes, but I also upped my retraction a little bit more every so often, and I found the more the retraction I went, the less hair I was getting with mine. But only got a couple wisps. But you know, just take a heat gun to it and gone.
Yeah, some people don't want to do that post-processing.
I guess. But I found just play with your retractions. You'll figure out what's the best retractions for your printer. And I found printing a little bit slower does help too.
Yeah, it does help a little bit. And you've got to be a little bit further away than you would be for normal PLA and normal ABS, I find as well. You got to be a little bit farther away from the bed as well. Brian, I know you've been printing with PETG a little bit lately.
Yeah, I keep changing my mind. When it comes to stringing, there's only a few reasons that'll happen. Either, well, the fact is there's filament in your nozzle and it's warm enough that it can leak out. So the first rule of thumb is try to drop your temperature. And if you can't drop it much more, slow down the print a bit to try that. If that fails, there are newer experimental techniques for reducing stringing, which I really don't want anyone else to get into yet until it's refined. But for now, I would say for PETG, slow down your speeds, cool it down a bit, and slow down your retraction speed. Apparently, the material itself is quite sticky, and so fast retractions will just cause it to separate, whereas a slow retraction will pull it back from the hot end.
Great tip. A state of panic. Hello, I have a CR10S and was wondering if I can change my firmware back to stock firmware. I got Marlin 1.1.9, and do you know where I can download stock firmware for the CR10S? Yes, we do. We actually just did it today. You can go and download the original firmware, and this is the source code. This isn't the hex file. Right from Creality's website. Just go there, find the CR10S 300, download that firmware, and you can install it directly on your machine. So that's it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. Why would you want to change it from the Marlin 1.119 when 119 actually comes with a lot of better options, especially in the jerk controls?
I think probably that might be due to the amount of space it takes up in the memory on that board. That board doesn't have an incredible range of memory on it. So if you put something, a bloated firmware on, for lack of a better term, it can take up more memory space than what it can cache later on when you're trying to do a print.
Okay, I thought the CR10S actually had the bigger chip than the CR10.
It does. It does. However, if you look at the CR10 source code, and Brian and I were looking at it today, there's a lot that is just stripped right out of there.
Okay.
Here's a question from Frank Soilo over on Facebook or on YouTube in our comment section. What are the steps to calibrate your extruder when you change filament once you swapped it to the Bondtech extruder and using Octoprint? This is a tough question to answer. When you move to the stock extruder, or you move to the Bondtech extruder for your CR10, if that's what you're using, and I don't know that you are, in their documentation, it'll tell you what your E-steps should be. In the case of the Bondtech extruder, it's 415 for the CR10S. How it's going to interact with Octoprint, I don't know. I'm experimenting with that with AstroPrint right now, because I know when I slice in the cloud, it doesn't utilize the changes that I've made in my start and my NG code that I've done in, let's say, if I slice it myself. But if I use the cloud slicing service, it doesn't have that information. Brian?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in complete agreement with you there. I got not much else to say on it.
Yeah, okay.
I was just replying to some comments here on YouTube, but we're getting lots of great engagement tonight. Good job, everyone.
Yes, great job.
I like this.
Can I get a better board for an Ender 3 than the stock? Yes, you can.
Oh, there's many different boards you can get.
Well, I was going to elaborate a bit on that because I'm going to eventually have to talk about this. Okay, what you're seeing over there is CR10. Well, today Brian bought himself a little present, and right beside me to my right, this is going on. This gorgeous brand new print on a brand new Ender 3 that never booted the stock firmware once. So in regards to better boards for the Ender, yeah, there are better boards. But have you considered Klipper yet? And eventually maybe I'll talk about that a bit more here, but Klipper has reinvented the Ender 3 already for me today.
Is Klipper firmware or?
It's a combination of firmware and offsetting the processing to a Raspberry Pi.
Ooh.
So
and you are using Octoprint, right?
Oh yeah, this is running off Octoprint right now beside me, and so is Klipper. It's off the same Raspberry Pi. So
there you go.
You can get gorgeous prints out of the Ender 3 with a ton of firmware features without swapping out the board. And apparently in the manual, we didn't even have to flash that bootloader. That's just bad habits that we have.
You didn't have to flash the bootloader on the Ender 3 Pro?
Apparently you can do it without flashing the bootloader. Apparently there's a bootloader that they built in that interacts with AVR Dude that doesn't interact with Arduino. So
wow.
Yeah. So all that work this afternoon right before closing may have been for naught. I don't know. We'll have to try it on one of the ones in the store.
Well, what's the board in there? No, the board's the same board that's in my Ender 3 at the shop. It's a version 1.
It's it's a version 1. There's a Meltzy. I'll have to see if I can pull up the manual here.
It's a Meltzy board.
Yeah. Where is it here?
Yes, Johnny Gardner, we are going to be doing a video on that at some point in time soon.
Okay, where is their example config? And by the way, they have an example config pre-built for the Ender 3. I didn't have to configure anything.
Really? Nice.
Yeah. Okay, here's our boring line here. So, it'll say a number of Meltzy boards are shipped with a bootloader. And you just have to run this command to flash the firmware. And then if that doesn't work, then you have to go and flash the Arduino bootloader.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, so we'll have to try that on a Virgin machine. That may mean you don't have to do that whole Sanguino thing.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Here's a comment that we got this week. And I want to read this because, yes, it's true. And sometimes you have to do it. So, Noir Stranger says, you're not supposed to take the hot end apart when it's hot, as far as I know. It's an accident waiting to happen. The only time you need to do anything when hot is removing the nozzle. That is correct and incorrect at the same time. And the reason I'm saying that is because if you watch the video where I'm taking off that stock hot end and I'm putting on the micro Swiss, underneath, because there was no insulation wrap on that particular nozzle, it was gummed up. So I had to heat things up in order to be able to break all the screws to get things open so I could get that hot end out. Now, in retrospect, I should have, as soon as I got it loosened and enough to come out, I should have turned off the machine, let it cool down before I removed it from the block. But at the same token, I've done this a million times and I've never had a problem. But again, I encourage you not to do what I did. But yes, you can cause a fire if you're not careful, or you can seriously harm yourself. I've done this a million times, so it doesn't. I'm experienced. My Anycubic, here's from Phil Morris. He says, my Anycubic i3 has recently developed Z-wobble banding. can flexible couplers help the Z wobble, or do I need to realign and calibrate everything? Phil, I'm going to say don't get flexible couplers. Brian?
You know, if it ain't broke, but flexible couplers, if you're going to flexible, the whole point of flexible is so that the coupler can move instead of the rod, and that sounds like it's patching an issue rather than actually fixing it.
I would check to see that maybe something hasn't loosened up on the travel of that Z rod, on the two Z rods, because that can, if the coupler that is, or the nut that rides up and down that lead screw is loose in any way, that can cause some Z wobble. What I would do is I would change those out to stiff couplers. I find that with stiff couplers, I don't get any Z banding on anything.
Now I have.
What about you, Ron?
Well, I have the flexible coupler on my CR10. I've not noticed any Z banding on my end, but it's the coupler thing is a little bit of a questionable thing. I would just try personally myself. I would realign and calibrate it again and see if it shows up again after doing that. And if it's still showing up, then maybe a new coupler is needed. But I don't know if you should go. I can't really say if you should go flexible or not. Honestly,
well, Phil says here, yeah, coupler set screw came loose. That could be where the problem is.
Yep.
I would tighten it up and realign everything. Here's a loaded question. Brian, do you want to take that? This one's from Frank Beaker. He says, how often should you change nozzles in terms of spools of filament, or should I not look at it that way?
Don't touch the nozzle unless you've really borked it up.
I agree.
Or if you want to change nozzle sizes, like I'm running a 0.6 on my CR10 there. I'm running 0.4 on the Ender 3, and on my monoprice unit that's in pieces beside me right now, that's running a 0.2. So I have some variety there. It's such a pain to reattach nozzles, recalibrate everything, that you really have to have a good reason.
I agree with that. What about you, Ron?
The nozzle question is very loaded. Let's face it. I would actually probably just, well, personally myself, I'm looking at getting a hardened nozzle because I'm printing with, matters on the filament you're printing with. Let's say if you want to print with, say, like that's the ear. Say you print with this stuff. This stuff I have in my hands right now is the glow-in-the-dark filament. This stuff will rip through a 0.4 nozzle like no man's land, but it matters how much you're going to print. If you're going to print like a full spool, then yes, you want to change that head. Go to a hardened nozzle if you're going to be printing stuff like that style, or even if you're going to be printing, say, wood filament, because that stuff can rip right through a nozzle with no time flat.
Oh, never print wood filament in anything smaller than a 0.6. Doctor's orders.
You know, Brian, I agree with what you said, and I just want to kind of clarify what Ron was speaking about there. When you are moving to other filaments that have abrasives, I'm sorry, such as wood, glow in the dark, carbon fiber, any of the metal fills, you want to have a hardened steel nozzle. The reason is because those abrasives will go through a brass nozzle like poop through a goose. And they will widen the orifice of that 0.4, 0.6, or 0.8 nozzle, whichever one you're using, very quickly on a brass nozzle. So you do want to go to either a stainless steel or a hardened steel. I agree with Ron on that.
Or you can just go to a hard nozzle and just leave it at a hard nozzle, too.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we just got another question here.
I think of it as welding tips, Frank Beaker is saying, and would not change it unless damaged. Well, certain materials require certain nozzles and certain hot end setups. So when you're getting into anything above PETG, you want to make sure that you have actually, once you get to PETG, you want to make sure that you've got an all metal hot end. The reason is if you've got PTFE liners that are going anywhere near that heated zone, like they do on the stock Creality CR10, and the Ender 3 is another great example of that. That PTFE tube starts to break down at 240. Now, I've also seen where exposed or long-term use of that PTFE tube at degrees of 220, 230 will start to break down over time as well and give you a clogging issue.
Hey, can I give you guys a random tip for the night?
Sure.
Don't print with green when you're going to be on green screen. I can't show you guys all the cool stuff going on here.
So Johnny Gardner's asking, what's better, stainless or hardened steel? That's a loaded question too. I personally think that hardened steel is a better conductor of heat than the stainless steel is. That's just my personal opinion, but anybody else?
I'd say probably the hardened steel I would go with also, only because if you run into something that's a little bit more, you run into printing with different filaments, then you might want to go with the hardened steel, in my opinion.
Now, John Quant, I hope I pronounced his last name right. He says, Olsen Ruby. Well, I have my own opinions about the Olsen Ruby, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And so Paul Cole says, is the Olsen or is the Ruby nozzle better than hardened steel and worth the upgrade price around $100+? Now, I've had experience with them. I've had customers who have purchased them. I'm not going to mention any names, but he is in our chat tonight, where he had bought Ruby nozzles for his machines. The Ruby nozzle is perfect for an E3D setup only. If you have any other style of extruder, they are no good because the throat or the threading is too long and you can't get a tight enough seal all the way to the throat. Yes, it'll meet the throat, but then you've also got a space between the actual block and the tapered end of the nozzle. Now, the Ruby portion of that nozzle heats differently than the brass in which surrounds it. So for $100+, don't make that investment. Pay the $25 or $30, get a hardened steel, save yourself some money. The Ruby Olsen, in my opinion, is just more hype than it's worth. That's my personal opinion.
I just need to know who it's marketed for, because I don't understand what benefit it's trying to offer for any consumer. Even for businesses, I'm a little questionable about it, because the ROI is, well, it's even at retail here, we're talking 6 times the price. So
yeah,
how often do you go through those nozzles?
$130 in Canada.
I have
it's definitely the ROI, the return on investment is definitely not worth it. So some people have had great success with it, but if you have any other setup other than an E3D setup, it's not worth buying.
I got some choice words about this nozzle. Not worth
Okay, good.
I really don't think it's worth the money, honestly, and I'll explain it simply. I've heard time and time and time again that Ruby just falling out of that Hotend.
I'll tell you why that happens.
Still to this day. So
that Ruby is set into the nozzle just like a diamond is set into a ring. So when the Ruby goes in, that brass is formed around a very, very thin lip of the Ruby, and it basically over time can fall out. If you smash it into the bed because you haven't set up your bed leveling properly, you can damage a $130+ nozzle, and again, it's not worth it.
Yeah, just talking to other makers that I've met that had the Ruby, bought it, and had nothing but headaches with it. And I've heard more horror stories at Murph than you could shake a stick at. Kind of told me, yeah, I'm not going to go Ruby anytime soon. And a lot of other people have told me, like, the Ruby is a nice nozzle. It's good for what it is, but People have said they've had problems with it. So
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. I don't think the ruby nozzle is worth the money. I got a couple other questions here I want to quickly cover that haven't really been covered in our YouTube chat.
While you're pulling those up, I'm just going to quickly show this. Here's the end result of that print that I was just showing you.
That's gorgeous.
That is at 0.2 millimeters. Took about 3 hours to print. And that was with Klipper and everything else stock on the Ender 3.
here's a question. Is that as smooth as your other print you did?
Sure is.
Oh, good Lord.
That was a long night.
If you wanted to see a 3D printer's wet dream, you just saw it.
Oh, I can give the model online for the other one. What the heck did I say about it? It feels good on the face.
Something like that. Let me see if I still have the picture here.
Yeah, Ron's got it hiding away there because that was on his live stream. I pulled it out. I'm like, it's so smooth. It feels so good on the face.
No, you oh, there it is. Okay, I got it here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This is quickly getting out of hand.
Well, what happens on Canadian Maker Project After Hours stays on Canadian Maker Project After Hours until I tell Ron to publish it.
And we just go when it comes up. This is the beauty of live.
Here you guys go.
Frank Beaker has another question. Is stringing on prints indicative of anything as in problems or parts wearing out? Not for the most part. Usually what it is it's indicative of too much moisture in the air. I know here in Calgary this summer, we had an unusually moist summer. It's usually pretty dry here. And no matter what I printed, everything was stringing like crazy. You remember that, Brian?
Yeah, we had that with all sorts of filaments. And of course, I wasn't printing with premium filaments. I was printing with cheap stuff. So it was easy to blame the manufacturer. But there were some stringing issues for sure. And especially when storms went through and when filaments seemed to be otherwise dry, it became quite brittle out of the blue.
I agree.
See, stringing, I don't really fully comprehend how it is that the moisture impacts the stringing factor. I just know that usually it's a result of temperature and free flowing. It might be that the moisture in the filament itself is evaporating, which allows to lubricate and smoothen the flow through that nozzle. But, you know, we were getting some pretty high retraction settings to make it work.
Yeah, I agree.
Ron, you're just going to keep that photo up all night.
You know, now that winter is here in Canada, or at least in Alberta, southern Alberta, I'm not getting any stringing at all with the exact same filament. And yeah, Bowden doesn't help also either. You'll get less stringing with a direct drive for sure.
Yeah, and that's just because of how it can retract too. I mean, there's retraction is an art. You do too much, you're going to get blockages and heat creep. You do too little, you're going to get stringing. But it really does depend on your client. Like this print just printed perfectly, and you know, it's 17% humidity in this room. Holding in my hand beforehand, it was 12, and it's a whopping 28 degrees in this room right now. So it's a little roasty, right? Everybody's mileage will vary based off print quality. In general, just slow it down. If you're getting lots of string, just slow it down, especially on the retraction. Give it time to pull it back into the nozzle. Give it time to restart when it lands, and you won't get too much stringing. If anything, you'll get upward stringing.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one for sure. I know that a lot of my prints and my wife complained endlessly about it, that we got a lot of stringing on stuff that she was cleaning for next year's Calgary Expo, which we're going to be debuting some new models and some new stuff at. And she was not happy with the amount of stringing that was on a lot of parts over the summer. But now that we've moved into the fall and into the winter, I virtually have no stringing with the exact same settings. So that's Paul amazing. Taylor says, when you say increased retraction, are you talking about length or speed? In your slicer, and Brian knows more about this than I do, but in your slicer, there's a retraction setting that you can set the amount that it retracts. Brian?
Yeah, hey, let me see if I can pull over to this here. Whoop, look at that. I even had Cure already up. So for retraction, I'm a really bad person. I like to just search all my settings, so I just start searching retract. And right here, you can see I was dialing it back with my miniature unit. Unfortunately, it's a little tiny there, but I had it at 0.4 millimeters. It depends on your setup. Generally, I've heard you don't want to go higher than 2 millimeters. The key is slow down this retraction speed. Slower will usually benefit you. 30 millimeters per second is usually pretty good. You can go as high as 60 with PLA, but especially with Bondtex and other extruders, you don't want to be hammering it that hard. So try setting your retraction to 30 millimeters per second, and I'd start with about 1.5 millimeters of retraction, and just see if it makes a difference for you. The other feature to look at turning on is your Z hop while retracted, and that one will force it to hop up, and it will also buy you a little bit of time as it retracts. So if you have any stringing, it'll build up vertically rather than inside or out, depending on where it's going.
Now there's a comment here from TK. He says also enable coasting. Now, I've not had a whole lot of success with coasting myself. What about you, Brian?
Coasting can work, but basically I'm running linear advance on a lot of my firmwares, where you have to turn that off or it's going to cause major print issues. If you're not running linear advance, it doesn't hurt. It's just Cura's calculations are a little confusing. If you're using Simplify 3D, coasting will give you a length, but in Cura, you have to set a volume. So you have to calculate your nozzle volume and play around with that until it coasts the exact volume to which you have little to no stringing. So if you overdo it, you're going to have holes in your print. If you overdo it, you're going to have blobs, and it's something to try, but it's still very experimental and has been known to cause issues on a couple different printers. So, I mean, try it. It's easy enough to turn on and off, but don't start a big print with it.
I'll agree with you on that one for sure. Chris Setla says, can you use higher temperatures at all with Capricorn versus regular PTFE tubes? Absolutely you can. I recommend that everybody go to Capricorn tubing. Get rid of that crap that you get with your printer, and spend the money and buy the Capricorn tubing. I have it on all my printers now, and I got to tell you, it makes a huge difference.
What are your thoughts on putting in Capricorn tubing instead of an all-metal Hotend?
You mean like with the CR10?
Well, okay, so obviously, a lot of people go over to the hardened or the all-metal Hotends, not only because of abrasive materials, but because of the temperatures. So right. Capricorn's rated up to 300, I believe, right?
Yeah, it is.
So
yeah.
do you think you could just run Capricorn on, let's say even right here, like a stock Ender 3 Pro, run that, and then you can start printing in the 260 range without worrying?
I don't see why not.
So there you go. There's your cheapest upgrade you can do to print PETG and higher materials without jamming up your PFTE liner, because it replaces the PFTE liner.
Yeah, absolutely it does.
Yeah. I was going to say Capricorn all the way over, but now you come into another problem. Because Capricorn is has a high tolerance for 1.75 or 2.85, depending on which one you're using, is now you got the filaments that are maybe off-sized a little bit. And if you like buying the cheaper filament, sometimes that filament is off-sized.
I agree with you on that as well, Ron. Here's where I run into an issue with on that side, is that if you are going to go, there's two different types of Capricorn tubing. There's the LS and the XS. The XS is made for those people that want to run things like flexible filaments, because the inner diameter is 1.8 and it's consistent all the way through. Whereas with the LS, it is full 2 millimeters. So diameter-wise, it's like your regular PTFE tubing. However, it will handle the higher temperatures.
I had heard they changed that inner diameter on the Was it the excess there up to 1.9 because there was a lot of stuff deviating into the 1.8?
I hadn't heard that yet, but if that's the case, then that's great.
What was it? XS? That's the tighter one.
Yeah, XS is the dark blue, and the LS is the light blue.
Ooh, apparently Capricorn just started selling their own PC4 M10 fittings, so new Bowden fittings. I'm just looking through their website here to see what they have, if they've updated their technical specs here. Okay. Our competitors, okay, XS. Density, okay, here we go. Just transition here. XS now has an inner diameter of 1.90 plus or minus 0.05, and the other one has 2.05 plus or minus 0.5. I'd heard about this because I had some issues with some very early on Capricorn that was just too tight, and it looks like they've changed that up.
We go through at Spool 3D, we go through that Capricorn tubing like water. I mean, we're putting out a brand new roll about every 3 weeks.
Yeah, so you've probably been on the newer stuff for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at.
Although we are out of tube cutters.
Oh, it's a good thing I didn't try to buy one today.
That's right.
I was just going to say, I was at one of their. I was at the East Coast Ret Rod Festival, and they were just selling it like water, basically, and they were throwing in tube cutters into every sale. So,
you know, those tube cutters are very handy, even if you've got normal PTFE tubing. Those tube cutters are great for all those guys that can't get a tube cutter. Go and buy yourself a cable stripper. They're the same thing. They've got a blade in them, and you just snap down and it cuts your wire and it cuts your cable, and it does the same thing for the PTFE tubing without crushing it.
Not trying to impede sales of the cutter or anything, but I've had great success in side cutters, but with a piece of filament on the inside.
Yeah.
So the inner diameter doesn't
do it.
I mean, it's ugly, but it does the job.
Yeah.
So I want to discuss a little rumor that's popped up the past few days, and or not really rumor, I guess it's just a teaser, because it's been bothering me on Thingiverse. On the homepage, you've been prompted with a little banner takes you to this.
What?
yeah.
They are coming out with some new printer in the next 10 days. And if we go back to the main page, rapid prototyping redefined.
Well,
I wonder if that's their first resin printer.
I hope not.
Could be.
It would be a terrible time to release one.
They're doing a resin printer, so I'm wondering if that's not a resin printer as well.
Could very well be, given the design of it.
Is there any other information about it on their website?
I'm looking through it.
MakerBot website?
I will dig into the background info to see if somebody accidentally called a file name wrong.
Never know.
Yeah.
I suspect it's probably their new SLA printer that they've been working on. And now, speaking of SLA printers, E3D is coming out with one.
Ooh.
There's several companies that are jumping into the SLA DLP sort of printer market. Now, I don't own a DLP or an SLA printer myself, just because I don't need one. I mean, at the end of the day, everything I do in FDM, but if I was making something in respect to miniatures for tabletop wargaming, I would certainly love to have a SLA printer. But at the end of the day, I don't do that kind of thing anymore. I don't work for Games Workshop anymore, so I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. So tabletop wargaming is not something that I do. PJ Donahue. I just purchased a Creality CRX, and I'm having trouble getting the most current Cura slicer program to work with it. Any ideas on any fixes? If I'm not mistaken, Cura Let me just pull this up here real quick.
I think they added a profile for the CRX.
I think they do too. Let me just, do I have it on my computer? There's so much crap on my computer. I have no idea what I've got some days. Let me just pull it up. Ultimaker Cure. There we go. Well, the one that's on here is 3.5, but I'm pretty sure that they have.
Well, I'm just putting up 3.6, so I can also check too.
Yeah, check your 3.6 because I've got 3.5 on mine.
Hang on, I got it. I got 3.6 open right now.
Oh, okay.
Printer, add a printer, other. You know, nope, there's no CRX profile. But if I remember correctly from reading that manual, they told you just to go and use the CR10S profile and add a second extruder.
Oh, okay. Because
right,
for all intent and purposes, that's what it is.
Pretty much. Functionally, the steps per millimeter are all the same. They just added a second extruder, which is all handled within the firmware. What exactly issues are you having, PJ? Because I think you can just use the CR10S one and get single extrusion working to start with, and then work from there.
Okay.
Okay, that was just interesting. I just typed in CR.
Yeah.
And it brought up the Ultimaker, which was weird. Interesting. I just searched it and pulled up me an Ultimaker, but it gives me the two extruders, which was kind of weird.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to learn more about this thing that MakerBot is putting out.
Yeah, I'm trying to dig into it.
Give them your email address. All right, let's do that. Maybe they'll send us one for review.
I need that today.
Watch the video. It's an SLA printer.
It is?
Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not.
You're going to have to share this one with us.
Cheeky bastards.
What did they do?
Everything's out of focus on this printer when you hit watch the video after you give them your email address for more information.
Oh, did they link you it or what?
Yeah, go just click on the banner that's on Thingiverse. It'll take you to their page and it'll ask you for an email address if you want more information. As soon as you submit that, it goes to watch the video.
Oh,
watch the video. It takes you to YouTube, and it's all out of focus.
Well, bring up the video then. Let's have a look.
Yeah, I'm gonna share the screen right now. Let me just open this up, and I'll restart the. I'm not gonna run it with sound because then we'll get demonetized for sure.
This is a some kind of dual head extruder.
Yeah. Let me see if I can share my screen. There we go. All right, so here's the video. Let's hit play. So she hits a button. It opens up, and then you see what looks like
two heads.
Two heads. And that's the whole video.
But those are very custom heads. I'll hang on one second here. Here's what I'm seeing. This is probably the clearest frame I got, and I couldn't do much to brighten it up or anything. It looks like it's something custom. I mean, it could be lasers, but I'd hope not.
It could be.
But that looks like some kind of cartridge, basically.
You know what that reminds me of? Do you remember that extruder that was sitting on Derek's desk a while ago? That where you could quickly exchange the head and it locked in?
Oh, like a multi-head tool or something.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking they might have done there. Because that looks very reminiscent of an ink cartridge style bayonet connection.
Right.
And it just kind of locks into place, right? You throw in your new head, you lock it into place, you're done. No more, no fuss, no muss.
Yeah, it looks a lot like a like what you'd see on an inkjet printer sort of thing.
Yeah.
I was about to say that myself. Could it be that they're doing 3D printing when like the tool changer like E3D has?
Oh, they totally are. Look at the catchphrase. Innovation unlocked.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
So that's actually quite interesting.
This always happens. I always buy a new printer.
One step or two extruders full color.
You'd need 4 at a minimum. You'd probably need a CMYK setup for full color.
I would agree with that.
So I've been hearing that people have been getting their what's that new color printer part that everybody's getting? The Palette 2.
Yes. Are they finally shipping?
Yeah, they are finally shipping.
Nice.
I know Nat 3D Designs just got his, so I'm waiting to hear how everyone's liking it so far.
Here's the thing.
Well, we requested one for review, so maybe we'll get a review copy. I don't know.
I've looked at it though, and my only concern is that it can do full color, correct? Like, can it do color mixing or? Because
no.
See, that's the problem, right? So it can do 4 colors, but it can't do color mixing. And I saw some of the early videos of how it works, and it's it's a unique concept. It offsets the slicer. You have to know your measurement distance between your printer, and then it'll cut a piece off, bring a new one in, weld them together. It makes sense, but again, you can't mix different material types. It all has to be the same material type and within similar temperatures. Exactly. I don't really see that much of a benefit over a mixing nozzle, to be honest.
Yeah, that is a good point. However, I think that the way that the new one does it over the old one, here's the problem I had with the old one, is that it was all built on old 3D printer technology because they were using a ramps board stacked on top of an Arduino Mega, and then there was a heater and a knife and or a cutter of some sort and that sort of thing. The problem with the old version is that it didn't weld those two pieces together well enough. So when it went up through the tube, a lot of the time it was breaking. So then it had to push, and of course you would get blockages in your Bowden tube. Now the new one, from what I understand, has solved that problem dramatically. So the Palette and the Palette Pro, or the Palette 2 and the Palette Pro 2, are much better equipped machines for that purpose. But again, I don't see them being a CMYK equivalent. CMYK is true color mixing, which you're not going to get out of, I think, the Palette or the Palette Pro. Eduardo M, shout out to Rich. Shout out to you, our Eduardo. What do we got here? 1 step or 2 extruders. Okay, we got that one. Am I missing anything?
Not really.
Nope, that's awesome.
If you want a shout out, just throw it in the chat there. We will gladly give everyone a shout out.
Shout out, just throw your name in the chat and we'll take care of it. If you guys are in the chat, you'll notice that down at the bottom there's a little happy face for an emoji. If you want to do an emoji, you can give us a thumbs up. And then there's a little $ there. What that is that's how you can show your support for the show. If you want to do it's called super chat. So you donate a couple bucks or whatever to feed my alcohol habit.
Well, alcohol for now, coffee in the morning.
Or Brian's alcohol habit on a Saturday night. Normally it's coffee with Rich, but you don't have to. It's there if you want to do it. Wade Lindstrom, hi all. There's Brian Baker again. Look at that. Emojis, wine glass, cocktails, beer. I like it. Love it. So we've got 1 thumbs down today. Somebody didn't like our stuff. Oh well. Sucks to be them. And yes, I said that live on air.
Well, welcome to our community.
That's right. Everybody's always welcome here. We usually open it up in the second half. Because we're doing this on a Saturday night, we're going to run a little long. So I'm going to actually right now, for anybody that wants to join us on our panel right now, you can do so by going right there. Hey, there's 3D Medic Vince.
Hey, Vince, how's it going, man?
I did get rid of Patreon. Well, Johnny, Patreon is still up. We're just not utilizing it just because I don't have time. This is Super Chat. This is something that's done through YouTube, just to clarify that. So it goes into our YouTube fund at the end of the month. So, yeah, that's what it is. Patreon is totally different from Buy Me a Coffee and from Super Chat. So yes, if anybody wants to join us, you can now join us. We'll keep going here for probably another hour. There's Johnny Gardner. He's going to join us. You must have a camera and a microphone in order to join us, just so you know that.
Yeah, we had an amazing conversation with a ghost last week.
Yeah.
Oh, really? A ghost came in and
yeah.
Oh, nice.
And then he informed us that he didn't have a mic or a camera. So
yeah, I think I've watched that already. Yeah.
So a State of Panic says, well, you guys have a good night. I have to go. Good night, State of Panic. Hopefully things aren't too stressful for you if you're in a state of panic. That was a bad joke.
Yeah. If you're wondering why I'm quiet here, I'm just working on setting up another print on this Ender 3. Because I actually hadn't set up an Ender 3 profile on this computer yet, so I'm trying the stock Cura settings versus what I dialed in for my CR10.
Well, let me ask you this. How are you liking the Ender 3 in your cases? Both of you. Because I know you've used one, Rich, so have you now. Brian, what's your picks on it?
Well, as I said, if the Ender 3 was out when I bought my CR10S, I would have bought the Ender 3 Pro because it's just that much of a better value, to be honest, for the build volume. I do love my big printer. I love it. But it took me a lot of effort more so into buying another printer versus the Ender. I had set my mind on the Ender for months, and it's actually surprisingly blown me completely away with my expectations tonight. I did not expect to get a quality print like that on my first print out of the box.
Thank you very much, Phil Morris. He just did a super chat for $5. Thank you.
Oh, all the best to you, my friend.
Holiday season to you too. We are going to have these Saturday night round tables for the next few weeks leading into the new year. I do have something we should kind of talk about what's coming in 2019. We've got a lot of projects that we didn't finish in 2018. One being the rebuild of the ANET A8 into the ANET M8. So we're going to finish that up in 2019. Should we talk about our big project, Brian? The one with arms and legs?
Oh yeah, that one. Let's save that one for January. I think that one's. I think that's something special.
We won't reveal that one because that's going to take months and months and months to do.
Oh, we can probably talk about our eventual plans to build that hypercube.
We are going to start working on the hypercube in the new year as well. And that's something that Brian and I are doing with support from Spool 3D. So we are getting some of the parts from them. We may not be able to do the linear rails that we wanted to do from IGUS due to the fact that they've gone dark and won't return my phone calls or emails. So I may have to go a different route. Our regular guy, who is our sales rep for IGUS, is not returning my emails or my phone calls. So I think I'm going to have to go through their marketing department. But we did want to have the IGUS rail system on our Core XY Extreme. Is that what it is? Or Hypercube? Hypercube.
It's just an evolution of the Core XY. I mean, it's a cool project. We will go into all the details about it because it's impressive. It's also very daunting, and it will require a lot of calibration.
It's very, very big. We've got a Prusa Mark II build that we are doing. We have filmed a little bit of it already. We won't be releasing that until 2019. Coming up, we still have to finish this year. We have to finish our upgrades on the CR10S that we're doing in the shop, which is my CR10S, by the way. So it's going to come back home eventually and go onto my bench here beside me. What else? There's a number of big projects we've got. We've got the the big one. We've got our Hypercube. We've got the Prusa Mark II all metal or extrusion build. There's a couple other things that we had going on that we haven't finished from this year. Remind me, Brian.
There's too many things we got going on.
These are a lot of these projects are going to take months and months and months to complete. So for anybody that wants to watch those projects, we are going to dive back into Cura. We're going to dive back into Simplify 3D, which are the two programs that we use most often. If anybody wants us to cover anything like Slicer or any of those types of sort of off the mark slicing programs, let us know in the comments so that we can check it out. And we'll learn it for you. If you want us to learn it, we'll learn it. We're going to dive into more about doing or working with Marlin so you guys can understand how Marlin really works. If you're not a programmer or you've never programmed anything in your life, it can be a little bit daunting when you look at it without knowing where to go. And I was in that boat myself, although I've done programming in C and C++ and C++. I've also programmed in Fortran, COBOL, ASCII even. Yeah,
you're showing your age, buddy.
I've actually even done binary math, which is a pain in the ass.
You're looking at one of the last programmers of my generation that we were taught on the Motorola 60HC11.
Oh, yeah.
With the, I think it was the Bulldog bootloader.
Gotcha.
Nothing more lovely than assembler.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? So yeah, there's a number of things that we got coming. We're going to do more builds in the back here from home, so you guys get a bit of that. Thank you very much, Paul Taylor, for the $5. That'll also go into feeding our habits. So we've got a lot of brand new projects. We're going to try and get out more to. I'm sure you guys want to see other people's maker spaces, right? So we're going to try and get out to doing more maker spaces in the upcoming year. We will be at Calgary Expo, just so everybody knows. Do you remember the color computer? I remember several color computers, the TRS-80 being the most prevalent, or the Coco as they called it.
Wasn't
I do remember that. Johnny just put it in the chat here. He doesn't have a camera or a microphone. What were you saying, Ron?
I was saying, isn't that the old Radio Shack computer you're talking about, the TRS-80?
It sure is.
Oh, God, I remember that machine.
Do you guys want a little bit of story there? Actually, before that, we've got a super chat from Paul Taylor. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was trying to flatten out my magnetic build plate. That's going to be a learning experience. Yeah, Tandy, which was the company behind all these computers, was a Radio Shack company. And they actually were still the backing company behind Radio Shack and everything up in Canada up until about 10 years ago.
You're correct.
That was when they got bought out by, what's the name of the guys?
Bell. Or are you talking about the Circuit City buyout?
Circuit City buyout first,
so
yeah.
What had happened was, actually at that time, when it became the source by Circuit City, it was still operated by Intertan Canada, which was Tandy Computers. It wasn't until Bell Media acquired it after the bankruptcy of Circuit City, which was funny. You know, it happened like 3 months after Circuit City went bankrupt that these names all went up as the source by Circuit City, and then they had to strip down the by Circuit City parts. And it's remained the source since, but now it's owned by Bell Global Media or whatever company they're called now.
It's owned by Bell now.
Yeah.
Hey, there's Ben Brady. He's a little late to the party, but that's okay.
Hey, Ben, you should come join us.
Stephen, the Lightspeed, has said, how long have you had this channel going? We've had this channel going for about 13 months now, coming up to 14 months. We started in October of 2016. No, 2017. 2017, we started doing regular shows, and we used to do this live stream in the middle of the week on Wednesdays. Now we do it on Saturdays. Normally it's at 10 a.m. in the morning, but through December, it is at 7 o'clock at night. How many of us work on this channel? I do. Brian does. Jess does. Jess is one of our helpers that comes in to help record shows with me. Frank Awesome, until recently, he's going to be moving to BC, so we wish Frank Awesome, who's done some fantastic work for us, we wish him all the best as he moves to and starts a new career in BC, and I look forward to still hearing from him. Johnny over here says he had all three. If you use a mic and camera, Comcast crashes you. Oh my God. Get off Comcast.
Yeah, I understand. For what it's worth, as much as we critique our data access being super expensive in Canada, as of this week, they announced they're going to be upgrading my coax connection here to 600 megabit down for free. So we're slowly catching up to the US for stability and speed, but we still have high telecom prices. So it's a catch-22 for us.
That's true. Yeah. I love this comment from Stephen the Lightspeed. He says, "You're Canadian? I'm from south of the border in Washington." Well, welcome, sir. Welcome. Yes, I am Canadian, and I don't say a boot. I say a boat. A boot is something you put on your foot.
Except when you're wandering a boot in the boot.
That's true.
Then it's a separate euphemism.
Now, see, a boot is something that is more Eastern, and I'm going to defer to Ron on that.
He's not that east.
Me. Oh my God!
You're east relative to us. Okay, you may be the center, certain body part of Canada, but you're further east than we are.
I'm further east, but I still say a boot and about. I mean, come on.
That's fair.
Hey, my boot about on the ship, and I'm bringing in some of them lobsters.
Yeah, at least I ain't calling guys hosers.
That's true.
We call each other hosers all the time.
That's true.
You know, this is something that kills me about Second City. Now we're getting completely off topic. It wasn't until Second City did the skit with Bob and Doug McKenzie that we have the slang hoser. I'd never heard that until I watched SCTV. What else did they do? Oh, back bacon and beer, eh? Ron, you don't say "a" very often. I don't say "a" very often.
I say it. It comes out every so often, and all of a sudden, like if I'm doing live stream, I'll just like "hey," and they're like, "Yay, he said "hey."
That happened when I went to the US for the first time. As soon as they found I was Canadian, they were watching me the whole time until I said "a," and then it was like some kind of achievement.
Yeah,
well, it's weird because I've done voiceover for companies in the US because I don't sound Canadian.
Nice.
They like the clearness, or now that I'm getting old, I can't even say that. Or maybe it's the alcohol. I don't know.
Yeah, blame it on
but
the
they
alcohol.
like the clearness in my voice because I enunciate like people in the US. Although, unless you're from the Valley, you don't enunciate.
True.
That says the Youpers.
The Youpers.
Jake from State Farm says, I blame the movie Fargo. I do too.
And the TV series now, which is actually shot here in Calgary, which is really weird.
Steven says, I'm like a Mexican to you guys. No, you're not. And no, we don't live in igloos.
Shh, don't tell them that. We want them to believe it.
Oh, yeah.
We want them to think the invasion's going to be easy.
Years ago, I was down in LA. I got to tell this story. I was down in LA, and a gal at the place that we were dining had asked me. She says, "Where are you guys all from?" And I said, "Well, I'm from Canada." And I was traveling with a U.S. band, and these guys were from all over the different parts of the U.S. And she said, "Canada? That's north, right?" I went, "Yes, absolutely. It's a completely different country." "Do you guys live in igloos up there?" No, we don't. We don't ride moose to work.
We could. We just choose not to.
But we don't. She was quite shocked that I said things like that. Come to Canada. It's a beautiful place. We have mountains, trees, and trunks, just like you do in the States.
And lots of oil for you to take home.
Yeah. We have oil. You want it? We'll give it to you.
We practically are already.
Yeah. Thank you, Trump.
Oh, my insides. Yeah. That's a whole other political issue and a half. For those who don't know.
Said Trump, watch all the hate mail come in.
Yeah, and mooses. That's correct.
Yes, Ben, we have moose.
A moose once bit my sister.
What?
No, I was going to get into the old Monty Python sketches there.
Oh, brother.
You know, in all the times that I've driven through the mountains living here in Alberta, I've never once hit a moose. And even all the times that I lived in Manitoba, where we have a lot of moose as well, and deer and things like that, I never once in my entire life have hit a deer or a moose. I've hit a skunk. Don't hit a skunk.
That must have been a stinky experience.
It was.
Porcupines are fun.
My car smelled like skunk for months.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. Don't hit skunks.
TK says there's no swear words in Welsh. It's funny when you hear a Welsh argument when suddenly you get the English swear words break in a strong Welsh accent.
Well, as a mother who's having a mother who's partially Welsh, I can safely say everything in Welsh sounds like a swear.
Johnny Gardner says they're waiting on fiber.
Ooh,
well, you can have brand. That'll give you fiber.
Oh, fiber.
I think he means fiber cable.
Well, either way, it's going to make things run faster, whether or not it's fiber or brand.
That's true. Welcome my friends, Saturday night, everybody.
One of my friends was a big fiber nut. And this is going back in my when I was learning how to do Windows. Was it Server 2000? Yeah, Server 2000. And we were joking around about, it'd be great if the building had fiber. And my friend goes, if this building had fiber, you know where to find me. I'd be in the closet, pawing it. Fiber. Like a cat. I was just going, yeah, I can see it now. We open up the door. There you are with cat ears, petting fiber, going, fiber. Yeah, we'll just close the door and try to imagine we didn't see that. He sent me a picture about a few months later when he was working at this one place. And they have fiber in there. And he acts like he's pawing the fiber. I'm like going, oh, God, Lord, it's come to haunt us. But
I guess I should finish the statement. He says, we're waiting on fiber. My mother has hit several deer. She's a pro at it.
Jeez.
I guess when your insurance rates are so high, you might as well just keep them high, eh?
There you go.
Okay, I was just going to comment on this. I just started a print job on this Ender 3 Pro, and the nozzle was heated to 200 in under 3 minutes. This thing's ridiculous.
You lucky bastard.
Apparently another comment I just made has just been blowing up on Twitter again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I made a comment about Filament Frenzy is looking at wants to start up his own YouTube channel. He was going to do it on his phone. I kind of said, if you're serious, get a camera and get a mic. Those are the top two. Third is lighting. Because as much as, we stated, it's whenever you're doing video, you got to have enough lighting or else you're going to look shadow. You're going to have tons of shadows. You're going to have darkness. It's not going to look good.
I mean, there is an art. You're right. I can show everyone, I'm playing with OBS Studio here, and, I'm not trying to make my lighting very well, but it's because everything is so tolerant. And, if you want to get into a YouTube channel, I'll tell you right now, video quality, yeah, it's a priority, but focus on your content first. If there's a way you can present your content effectively with what you have, then go with it. If you don't have it, I mean, you don't need fancy stuff. This right here is shot off a webcam with free software. And
here we go with the audio. Hang on.
There we go. There's trouble.
Hey, Ben.
Leave it to Ben to come in and interrupt everybody.
Yeah, see, I'm talking about video production quality, and he's like, yo! Where is it here? Sorry, there's so many things.
Taylor says Rich is starting to look well lit. I'm not sure if he means because of the alcohol or here.
If you're wondering why mine's all weird, it's because this is what's behind me. It's just green world. So
yeah, that's why your Power Rangers.
Video is not for anybody wanting to start a video channel or start something on YouTube and do what we do. Lighting and video are your least important. Audio is your most important. And I will preach this till the end of days. People will sit through crappy video, but they won't sit through crappy audio.
Word. 100%. I agree with you on that one. Like, you gotta remember. Go ahead.
If you are looking to get better video, the camera I'm on right now, believe it or not, is a Logitech C920. I am not using a fancy camera. I'm using a USB camera. I've got a softbox here. I have a softbox here, and I have a softbox back there, which are lighting me up. And this is how bright it is with just those 3 lights. And they're CFLs. They're cheap. You can buy a full set on Amazon for less than $200. Ron?
Yeah, so I'm using the Logitech C920 here, which is a great camera. I can't knock it. When I'm out, I have over in the back here, which you can't see, is my lighting equipment and my camera. And the microphone I use is this one right here, which is a Behringer, this is the 8500?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a handheld mic, but it produces some good sound, and it's only $29. Now, yes, it is only XLR, but you can go out and buy, like, say, the 2005 Audio Technica or the 2010, I think, is it the Audio Technica?
The Audio Technica would be this one right here.
Thank you.
Let me just, there we go.
Yeah, so that microphone that he's holding is one of the microphones I would also recommend because it also is USB enabled. So you can run USB or XLR depending on what type of audio you want to get out of there.
Let me see if the camera will pick that up. So we've got a USB plug here.
Wow.
You have a headphone volume knob here, and then you have a headphone jack there. So if you need to use this through USB, it's a great USB mic. I've actually had this one plugged into an iPad.
Yeah, it'll run in an iPad too with no problem.
Yeah,
but it's like we say, you don't have to spend a lot of money. Just spend it wisely on stuff that. And if you got questions, ask us. I know even me and Rich, we both used to do podcasting, so our equipment comes from way back in the day, but our equipment still runs to this day.
Yeah, we could probably emphasize we did not buy much equipment for this show. We just started off with what we had and did some upgrades. But I see Christy right there.
I saw her too, but I think she ran away. Oh no, there she is.
There she is.
Hello, gorgeous.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, Ben, we can hear you great. Your video feed is great tonight.
Well, I turned out the overhead light.
Well, it's very smooth today.
I'm just using my key lights here. So
nice.
Hey guys.
There you go.
Hey, Christy.
Hello, gorgeous. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
I think we've had a good show.
I think so.
Hey, Rich,
Lots of questions tonight, which was really good.
What are you drinking, Rich? Richard, what are you drinking? Oh, Jack Daniels.
Oh.
If anybody out there is interested, I am this kind of man. So my good friend, Richard Taylor, who started out as a customer at Spool 3D, recently brought me Jack Daniels rye whiskey, not Tennessee whiskey, but rye whiskey. And it didn't take me long to finish that.
How smooth would you say?
Very, very good. This is my normal poison, and this one came from Brian because what did I do for you that you brought me this?
You printed the wrong parts for me, and I still gave you liquor.
Oh, okay.
I had him printing 2 vents.
Yeah,
and that's why he printed the wrong parts.
Yep, because then he knows he got to get a second one for the makeup.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you sent me the parts. I just printed what you sent me.
Yeah, I wasn't very clear to mirror that part. Basically, the fang that you're seeing, and I hate the term fang, but the red parts you're seeing on my CR10 in the background, they all come on the orientation for the right side, and you need to mirror one of the parts to do the opposite side. So Rich gave me 2 identical side parts.
So Brian, did I hear you say you have an Ender Pro?
I do. Okay. And if you didn't see it earlier here, where is it here? Here's my first print off it using Klipper.
Oh, you're running Klipper.
I did. It didn't have the time of day. It never got a single boot on the stock firmware.
Wow. And how do you like Klipper?
Oh, wow. It is impressive. I didn't realize they integrate it and encourage you to run it on an Octopi installation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They want the Pi to handle the bulk of the processing.
Absolutely. And I was surprised at how well it handled it, because my one concern with the Ender 3 is the limited storage and limited processing space of the 1284p. So this, so far, it's great. And as I actually posted right away on the Ender 3 subreddit about it earlier, that my only concern at this stage is whether or not they've incorporated bed leveling sensors like BL Touch. You know, is it going to limit my functionality in the future for what I could add on to it?
Well, you know, I installed an EasyABL today, and the darn thing is bad. And so I yanked it off. And I yanked it off, and I haven't heard anything from Tim. And I've already ordered the parts from AliExpress to fix it.
What kind of issues are you having, just out of curiosity?
The optocoupler is bad.
Oh, okay.
Can I tell you something real quick?
Hang on, Christy wants to tell me something.
I'm just going to share here. Where is it here?
Jake from State Farm, while you're sharing, Jake from State Farm says, that's not Ben. Ben wears a hat.
You're not wrong there.
Mr. Buttram, what duct is that, Brian?
So here I got it up on the screen. I will post the link to the YouTube chat here. Look at that. I'm multitasking well. Yeah, this one here is the heavy-duty customizable modular E3D V6 blah, 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 blah. This modular system is great if you have an E3D V6 Hotend for your Creality. It offers all sorts of customization options, and it was good enough that Creality borrowed the design and made a metal version, to which I hear is coming back eventually. So if you go ever read all the comments, there's going to be a lot of stuff of, hey, this was so great that Creality took it. But what I liked about Creality's one is they printed a bunch of parts out of metal instead of out of plastic. But this thing is robust. The one thing I liked is that each fan duct on each side is adjustable by about a good ½ an inch up or down. So you can actually get that height perfect relative on your print bed.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how simple was that to get the adjustment?
I mean, I just eyeballed it, but it was no tougher than the Pet's Fang or any other ones.
Okay.
Brian, whose design is that?
This is by Cheeto on 3%.
So is that going to be an official product?
It was. Okay. For those of you who didn't hear the whole story with Creality, they released this kit. I'm going to see if I can find it really quickly. And they pulled it within 24 hours after threats from E3D, because they used the name E3D V6 on the product page, even though it was a knockoff J-head E3D V6 they were shipping it with.
Interesting.
In case anybody doesn't know, an E3D V6 J-head clone are only about $8. But if you want an E3D, spend the proper money. I've bought several of the $8 knockoffs, and believe me, they're only worth $8.
Hey, well, you know, I got to tell you this, though. I was really torn between spending a little bit of money on the E3D V6 and putting it on my CR10S, or spending the $9 for the TH3D titanium heat break. So just for the hell of it, I bought the heat break, and I'm telling you what, the thing performs great.
What did he charge you for that heat break?
$9.
Hang on a sec.
I think it's on sale right now, too.
Yes, it is. So it works with the Creality stock Hotend, You just take the regular heat break out, and you put this heat break in, and as Richard would say, Bob's your uncle.
So, Ben, I don't know if you were able to catch this because I don't know if you're subscribed to our to my channel, but we have a picture of Brian in a particular mode. Hang on, let me just share it again so I can all see it. There we go. It feels good on the face. He said that in live stream, rubbing it on his face. Oh my God, it feels good on the face too. It was after he did an upgrade on his CRS X. CRS, I should say.
I still stand by it. I stand by it. Okay, it does feel good.
But he printed it out. It's a weird shape. I don't know why he. Do you still have that piece?
Yeah, I use it to whack my cat. I just go and I just whack. You know, my cat likes to be like whacked with rubber bottles, so I'm like, okay, this thing's the perfect cat whacker. You know.
I can just see the comments. I can tell this is Saturday night.
No, but the whole point of that piece was because I was having some issues with my 8-bit Marlin board and doing arcs, and so it was a combination of a vertical pillar with little breakout circles on it to try and see if I could solve the deviations. And the long and pretty short was that I basically saturated what Marlin was capable of doing on that processor, and that's when I put in the MKS S-Base.
Now, Ben, going back to your titanium heat break,
yeah,
I'm not gonna dispute what he's got on his webpage, but he's selling a tough titanium heat break for V6 or Volcano hotends for $9.99.
No, not that one.
Not that one.
No, it's a different product specifically for the Creality hotend.
Specifically for Creality, okay. Because I'm on his product page right now. And if
now
you
the only
one for E3D, I'll tell you, we in Canada are selling it for $65. So I don't know where he's getting them that he could sell them for $9.
The heat break?
Yeah.
Just the heat break, you're selling them for $65.
Yeah.
Wow.
Titanium heat breaks for E3D hot ends.
Oh, you're talking about the whole hot end.
Yeah. No. I'm just talking about the heat break.
Wow. You guys have a hell of a tariff.
No, that's directly from E3D.
Oh, it's from E3D. Okay. Somebody, do they sell you Vaseline with that?
If you buy genuine E3D products, they typically are more expensive.
Yeah, but I can buy a whole E3D hot end from E3D for $65.
Yeah, but that's $60 US, and our dollar's at about $1.35 or something like that. So it's comes out to be $90 to $100 right now for an official E3D hot end for the full kit. The light one I think we can get for about 60 Canadian, but yeah, it's pretty pricey.
Yeah, I was lucky. Wow. I picked up mine at one of the shows, and I paid what, $55 for it, American. So that wasn't too bad.
So Ron, what is your channel?
So my channel is the Canadian Maker Project. So on that channel, we tend to talk about 3D printing, 3D ideas, whatever comes that I have access to, we'll talk about it.
Okay, I'll make it a point to look for it and subscribe.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm going to post it in the chat here, guys. And honestly, we love you guys. We love everyone as a community. But we also want to encourage you to support all each other. So I'm going to provide a link to Ron's channel here. And I would love it if each one of you goes over there and gives it a subscribe, checks out his content, and provide him some feedback.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, but a bunch of them I know already are on the channel, like Jake and Mr. Buttram.
Yeah, so if the subscribers go down, he's going to start pointing at us tonight. So please don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, addressing some of these, Jake from State Farm says the E3D hot end doesn't come with titanium. You're absolutely right. You have to buy that separately. The E3D hot end in Canada is, I want to say 100 or 84 bucks for an E3D genuine hot end.
I need something to drink.
You can get a knockoff for $8 on Amazon.
They're not that cheap. They're still like 18, 19 bucks, but
The last one I bought was $8.
okay, well, I'm just getting gypped then. Can't even buy pirated goods at a good price.
But at the end of the day, I mean, you don't buy a Maserati and put a Ford engine in it.
You could. You're just going to have a bad time.
Yeah. So it's the same with printers. I mean, if you're going to buy something that has an E3D hot end like a Prusa Mark III, you're not going to replace that hot end with a cheap Chinese clone. You're going to want to keep that premium product on your machine. In the terms of a Creality CR10, now we're comparing apples to oranges here, but when it comes to a CR10, the best thing you can do for your hot end is get rid of the stock hot end and upgrade to the Micro Swiss all metal. That is my personal opinion, and I've done it on 2 machines now for my own, and I think it works great.
So here's something a little something about upgrades tonight. I was browsing the Ender 3 subreddit after posting, and a lot of people were talking about adding dampers on the new Ender 3 and what to watch for. So I thought that was a little surprising. Reading into that and looking into my unit closer, they've swapped out all the driving gears on the X and Y with plastic gears that have been pressure pressed onto the assembly rather than screwed on. Let me pull up a photo. I sent it to Ron earlier, just before the show, actually.
Which one's that one?
The gear on each of the X and Y steppers is now a plastic gear that is pressure pressed on and not screwed in from the side.
I don't think you sent that to me, actually.
Did it not make it through?
What I'm seeing here, I'm looking at all the messages you sent me.
Oh, weird. Okay, I will.
I know we sent each other bunches of alcohol that we may try to.
Yeah, we did send a lot of videos of raiding my bar fridge. I'm going to take a photo over here and send it up.
I love this comment. This Keith B, I guess that's the way you pronounce it.
This is Keith.
Oh, this is Keith B. I'm sorry. I've been drinking tonight.
Yeah.
He says, having more content like this is great. Well, thank you. We like having content like this. And this is what we try to do on the first layer. For anybody that is new here, if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified, leave a comment, all that kind of great stuff. But what we try to do on this show is a little different from most other shows out there. We try to teach you 3D printing by exploring the world of 3D printing. And this is why I started this show initially a year ago, a little more than a year ago now, is because there was no great information out there that taught you about 3D printing. Everything was great. Like, people were going, look what I printed on that printer with these settings. Okay, but how did you get this from the file? What did you do? And there was nothing out there like that, and there was no real troubleshooting other than Tom Sandlander. Tom's 3D, if you're not subscribed to him, go and subscribe to Tom's 3D. Not like he needs any more 3D printer subscribers, but he's got a lot. We haven't got an award yet, but he does.
Yeah, I met the guy a couple times, so he's cool.
Yeah.
He's right down to earth.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He teaches you a lot. If you're very mechanically inclined, he's the guy to watch. But if you want to learn about 3D printing from the ground up as you are growing in the hobby, that's what we try and do with our channel here.
Okay, I'm just going to hop over to this here, but this is my Y gear.
Are those plastic?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, on the Pro, they're plastic. They changed.
On the first batch, they weren't.
No, so this one's plastic, and then if we go to the other one here.
Is that yours?
That's mine. And there is the X.
Oh, weird.
Interesting.
So
and there's no flat spot on the shaft.
No. Oh, really? It's round all the way around, eh? I didn't get a chance to look.
Yeah.
So as a
That's
result,
going to be a pain in the ass if you want to put dampeners on there.
that's what they said. There's a whole discussion on the Ender 3 subreddit, which if you do have an Ender 3, always check out Reddit for subreddits. They've got some great discussion. The pinned post at the top right now is in regards to this. That the original have movable gears that are set in place with grub screws. This is what you should all have.
That we originally got.
Yeah.
The new shipments, they've now gone and put this plastic gear on there.
Why would they do that?
And you have to have a gear puller to pull it off.
Yep. And so there's a whole discussion about this, you know, and you have to build offsets and everything, because if you notice, this is at the top of the shaft.
Yeah.
So if you put a dampener in there, you're only going to get about 30% contact.
Why would they do this?
Cost. I mean, they got to offset the cost of that actually having to carry a Meanwell power supply.
Well, in the original plans, when they were releasing the Pro, they said it was going to be a $100 upgrade.
Yeah.
And that I saw that in the email, and I just about flipped out because they weren't doing anything that was worth $100 to me.
Absolutely. That Meanwell power supply is only $40.
Yeah.
Right, but the difference is they also have to import it to China, I believe. They're not actually shipping. I believe they're importing them from the U.S. and shipping them back. Same thing with Capricorn. I don't think they're getting it domestically.
Jake from State Farm says, Reddit is for smart people. Unlike Facebook, it's for morons.
And then there's Tumblr. and Instagram. MySpace, oh man, that's taken us back a few years.
You know, I'm old.
Mr. Butchram, you are correct. It is called value engineering, and that's the sweet spot for cost cutting, you know. The fact is, for most of us, again, if you buy the Ender 3 Pro, you really shouldn't have to do any modifications to it. Mine is sitting right beside me right now, and I have it. I have a noise gate level cut off at, I think, minus 40 dB here. So you're not even hearing it hum. So it's not very loud to begin with. Just don't expect it to be in the bedroom or something like that, or don't expect it to be as quiet as running a Trinamic rig, but it's not that bad.
I need to correct Jake from State Farm in his latest post. So seriously, the Facebook 3D printing groups are a joke. Have you been to the first layer?
Many groups are a joke. I'll give you that. Some of the official ones, and I'll just say there's been a lot of bias on a couple of them recently. No comment other past that, but
I'm not getting into that one.
Yeah, you are right. It is difficult to get tech support on Facebook because Facebook is usually show off my print or look at all these mods I did, or it's a photo platform, so you're not going to get actual support. I've always found the best technical discussions, apart from our own Facebook group, of course, is places like Reddit.
I agree.
I'll have to check out Reddit then.
Yeah. Well, make sure you go to the right parts of Reddit, because Reddit is a very deep hole you don't want to get lost in.
Yeah, Reddit's one of those rabbit holes you can get lost very quickly.
Well, I've just about made up my mind that after the first of the year, my last day in office is December 31st. Mm-hmm. And the last official act is going to be a wedding at the courthouse. So I'm leaving on an up note. And after the first of the year, I'm going to go ahead and start my own channel.
Nice.
Oh, you know what, Ben? I'll tell you, if you haven't checked out Ben's Thingiverse page yet, and I'll grab a link to it shortly here. Ben has been doing some excellent engineering designs on just little fixes. Him and I are a lot alike in this case, where we see a problem. Okay, it doesn't have to be super pretty. Just design something out of the blue, and a day later we've got a functional product. And Ben, you've been amazing in publishing all this stuff for free, no contributions required or anything. Just throwing it out there, and everyone give a thumbs up for Ben.
I agree.
I'm telling you, I'm having a ball designing this stuff. When I was in high school, they wouldn't let me near the wood shop because I only have one eye, and they were afraid I would lose my fingers. And so they made me take 4 semesters of mechanical drawing. And and I hated it. I told myself I would never do this for a living. I just did not want to do it. But then, since I got into 3D printing and I wanted to design my own functional parts, I said, well, okay, I'll try to figure out a way to do this. And sure enough, I ended up back in the CAD software. So, and I'm having a ball. It's a whole lot of fun.
And one of the things that just came up here, sorry to cut you off, Brian, but there's a lot of Facebook groups. This is coming from Mr. Buttram with loads of bad info and maybe a few good pieces of info in there somewhere, but you have to wade through a river of crap to get to them. And I agree with that. And again, that's kind of why we started the show. And we spend a lot of time researching what we do so that you guys don't have to. So when we do something on the show, you can be guaranteed that we've gone ahead and researched that long before we even started to do the upgrade. And Brian can attest to that. Him and I spend a lot of time talking back and forth about what's coming up, what we should be looking into before we present that information to you guys.
And I mean, the other thing too is, honestly, we are not experts. We don't claim to be it, but we can safely say we've done this. We've tried this. This was our experience. You're welcome to try and replicate that, but I mean, this is nothing more than a scientific test sometimes.
And sometimes it's not even all that scientific.
Well, yeah. If you want to see the kind of things that I put together, mine are mad.
You can see it running.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
I see Wago connectors on your Hotend. That is awesome.
Hey, you're the first guy to notice that. Everyone else is just like, Brian, what's with your wiring?
I have an Ender 2 with Wago connectors on it. I love them. I think they're great.
They take up a lot of room, but for those of you that don't know what a Wago connector is, it's basically a spring-loaded connector that can handle high current, and your cables are not going to come out of those. So it has the added benefit that it has about maybe a quarter of an inch, eighth of an inch of room where you can keep the insulation in there. You don't have to worry about shocking yourself. You can use them for AC, and they're cheap as heck. You can find them on Amazon.
I got 100 of them like that you're using for $13 on eBay.
Yeah, and I found, I think, 20 of them on Amazon Canada for $15. They're disposable at that price.
Yeah,
I noticed those on there.
TS60 connectors for my robot project.
Right there, Brian.
Oh, there you go. You got to start shipping those out, Ben.
Yeah, Ben.
$1 a piece.
Done.
You got a pretty good business there, bud, actually.
$13. I couldn't believe it.
You know what we forgot there, Rich, tonight, seeing all that stuff, is we forgot about our little giveaway we've been talking about for the last 3 weeks.
Oh, the one that's still sitting in my office?
Yeah.
We'll do that next Saturday.
Speaking of stuff,
Jake from State
don't start, Ron.
Serious question, and I think this was more directed at me. He says, "Did you do a scientific test on adding the upper bearing block to the ender?" Because I added an upper bearing block to my ender, which is sitting in my office at Spool 3D. Did I do a scientific test? You'd have to define scientific, but what I did first and foremost is I did a print without it, and then I did a print with it. Now, the one thing that you have to do with that Z rod that goes up the back of the channel is that you have to make sure that it is dead straight, and you can get it dead straight. There are two little screws that are holding in the nut that goes up and down the lead screw nut. Now, if you took those two screws out, you would notice that those holes that they go through on the actual bracket are elongated, and they're elongated for a reason. Because you want to make sure that those are backed off just a little bit so that that locking washer that they have on there doesn't completely tighten down. You need to have that little play as it goes up and down, just because of the nature of that machine. Now, locking it off at the top has made my prints better as I go to larger and taller prints. So scientifically, no. Practically, yes.
Now, remember how we were, we were talking about this, and I actually went and built, as I was building my Ender 3 earlier, just so you guys know, in the Ender 3 Pro assembly, they want you to loosen these off come shipment. So if you haven't done that,
I've been telling people to loosen those screws for months.
They don't have to be rigid tight. And I'll tell you, I left them tight, and this machine made some horrifying sounds. I actually had to jump start it a few times with the motor turns. It could not overcome the torque of that. And then as soon as that was loosened off, all that sound went away. So yes, I mean, don't completely loosen them, but don't torque them down extremely tight because the tolerances just aren't there.
What I found when I've built
tighten them and back off a turn
is I will tighten them down and then I'll back them off about a half a turn. And it seems to give enough of play that it can go back and forth.
That's pretty much the same thing I did with mine. Mine were actually fully torqued down on delivery, so I went and rolled them back about a quarter turn, and it was noticeable. I mean, even looking at it right now, I probably need to readjust the Z screw after this print, but it's also printing so nice. So
yeah, they tighten up during shipping, Brian.
Well, good, because when they shipped the CR10Ss, they didn't tighten anything, and I lost wheels for a couple of days, because who puts black wheels in black styrofoam?
So what I've got on the printer right now, I don't know if you saw my other design earlier of the little shelf that you can put a regular Raspberry Pi case onto and mount it on your printer. Well, on my CR10S, in order for me to put that shelf on, I would have to take some bolts out and take the frame apart. So I said, the hell with that. I'm going to make this thing so you can just click it in to the channel. So that's what's printing right now is a print and click
nice
shell. Yeah.
Yeah. Be sure to post that right away once you got it there, because I want to see how it holds out with the strength with those angular connectors, because I've had mixed bag luck with those.
Mr. Buttram says mine wouldn't go up and down the Z rod with them snug, and that's exactly right. You can't have those two nuts on that, or those two screws on that nut completely snug. You have to back them off.
I'm getting a lot of push to get Klipper videos out here, so
we're going to be working on a whole bunch of new stuff for 2019, guys. So this month is going to be chaotic. I just want to let you guys know that our shows aren't going to come out on a regular schedule. It is so busy right now at spool3d.ca that I'm having to spend more time on the floor and less time in my studio. So
Richard,
yeah.
How was Black Monday?
Flat Monday? Busy.
How was Cyber Monday? Did you
Cyber Monday was good. We put out a lot of packages on Cyber Monday. Actually, that whole weekend we put out a lot of packages.
But Monday was special with that 20% off filament.
Yeah, yeah. You look on our shelves right now at the store, and there's very little filament on the shelves. So it's pretty crazy. And we're expecting filament in sometime this week coming, probably by Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, and it's been a good batch this year. Not to tout their horn or anything, but the last few batches have been real nice. And as I showed off earlier, which you can't see because of green screen, this was printed on Squill 3D filament, and you can see the shine just off the green screening mishaps here. And that was at 0.2 millimeter. It's been really nice this year.
Yeah, so you can expect a lot of new things coming from the show in the new year. We've got some projects that are going to take us over multiple episodes. We are going to get back to the Ender 3 because I know a lot of people are going to be picking up Ender 3s over the holidays. We've got coming up in the next couple of weeks, we've got our top 10 Christmas gifts or Christmas ideas for the 3D printer enthusiast in your life. So make sure your wives watch that show.
Hey, Richard?
Yes.
This is why nobody gives me any crap.
Oh, there you go.
You haven't 3D
Hey,
printed a
Ron, you
holster
lost
yet,
the
eh?
T-shirt race. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what that's about.
I owed over a T-shirt. He won it off the 100 subscribers that I ran.
Gotcha.
I went through three different distributors, and they all kind of failed on the T-shirt because they were all saying, "Oh, I can do it this lower price. I can do it this lower price. I can do it this lower price." Went through all three of them. All three of them screwed up on the T-shirts. All of them came out terrible, and one of them actually went under. So
wow.
it was more of a catch 22 three ways, and it's just like, okay, fine. So I finally went down to Toronto, where I know the guy that does T-shirts that's been printed. I just gotta get it in the mail. It's just been a hellish of a time trying to get it downtown because I live in Cambridge, which is about an hour and a half away from Toronto, so it takes longer to get back and forth.
Gotcha.
But
Mr. Buttram, any of you guys at the first layer messing around with bigger nozzles on your Creality machines? Brian is. I'm not.
I am. Yeah, I'm at 0.6 right now, and you can see it above there. It's printing a nice lithophane right now. I do notice even between 0.4 and 0.6 quite a resolution change, though. So I guess it depends on what you're printing. In my case, I'm not printing. Well, I'm printing a lot of things with micro movements right now, and the quality loss, it's just not worth the time I'd save by going on a 0.8 or 1.0. I do have the Bond Tech on there, and I have Linear Advance, and I'm kind of terrified if we start getting to those levels of flow rates, if I'm going to start overwhelming my NEMA motor on there. So I might eventually try it here, but up until today, the CR10 was my only real running printer, and so I really couldn't afford the time, the downtime to start messing around with different nozzles and so forth. So right now it's at the 0.6 hardened steel nozzle with the Volcano, and it's great. I say 0.6 is a pretty good size to play with. 0.8 and 1.0, you're really going to notice a quality loss, and I'd only do it if you're printing certain mechanical parts that you need at a ridiculous speed.
But there are some significant advantages to big nozzles, though.
Well, but it's primarily speed. There is some bonding, like with how the material welds to itself because of the higher volume output. But a lot of users, though, I mean, a show of hands, really, are you primarily a mechanical designer, or are you do you like to do artistic things? And I'm finding I'm leaning more to the artistic, but I like the ability to do the mechanical parts.
There you go.
Yep.
Just food for thought. I mean, everyone else, does anyone else in the chat use large nozzles? I've only spoken with one or two people that have used 1.2 millimeters, and the flow rate required at that is just so ridiculous. I can't even
it's insane. Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah, Johnny says, I've printed vases with 0.6 and 0.8. Looks great. I've got some nozzles here, but I've not put them on any of my machines because most of the stuff that I do for shows and stuff are figures where I'm painting them, and I need that fine detail. So I like to have a 0.4, and I printed 0.1 or 0.06. So yeah, the 0.4 works for me the best, and I don't get any clogging. So.
Hey, Richard, have you printed that YouTube subscribe wedge that I sent you with the multicolor G-code?
Not yet.
Okay.
I haven't had time. I'll probably get around to it over the holidays. I've got to get my other printer back here, and I have to finish that half of the room. And what's behind me, by the way, you guys can see my big mess here. This is my spray booth.
It looks better than it did.
What's that?
It looks better than it did.
Yeah, it does. Over here is my compressor for my airbrush. We're going to be doing some more painting tutorials. We've got a robot back here from Easy Robot that we're going to be working with in the new year. I've got to get venting done for my spray booth. There's a bunch of stuff that has to happen back there so we can do more tutorials in the painting and finishing realm of your 3D prints, because I know a lot of guys are waiting for that as well. And as far as 3D printing goes, now that we have Astro Print set up for all of our machines here at the house, we can now start doing time lapses and start including those in our videos so you guys can see if we fail or if we don't fail.
That's a question for the chat here. Do you guys want to see time lapses? We can We publish regular content on here, but maybe if you just want to see a cool time lapse, let us know and we'll publish some of our longer ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Rover. Rover joined us late, but that's okay. Wiley's 3D, I see you there. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Johnny Gardner's on his way out. Have a great night, Johnny. We are going to, it is 9 o'clock. We now have reached the end of our 2-hour time limit. I know we could do this for 8 hours or 12 hours or whatever it is, but 2 hours is long enough. So we're going to stop the broadcast here. And for you guys that want to join us, I will put that back in the chat here. So there is the Hangout. We're going to stay in the Hangout privately for a little while. That way we don't say anything that could be misconstrued on a live broadcast. With that said, guys, I want to thank my panel tonight with Brian Baker. As always, Brian's here with us each and every Saturday. And of course, Ron Madsdiak from the Canadian Maker Project. Again, if you're not subscribed to the Canadian Maker Project, go check it out, because Ron is going to be doing some stuff that we don't do that is catered to makers and not just 3D printing makers. Right, Ron?
Yeah, I'm hoping to get into some woodwork, which I'm looking forward to. I'm probably going to team up with a couple of makers I know out here. I'm going to do some, look at some maker spaces that are out here and talk with them and, you know, try to bring a little bit more variety to the maker world.
So go and check out the Canadian Maker Project over on YouTube. I believe you've got a Facebook page as well.
Yep, Facebook
and
page.
You can check that out. We'll get all the links for you. We'll put it up over on our Facebook page as well. And by the way, Rover is saying Jamie's Print and Play. He does a 3-day streams. Speaking of Jamie from Print and Play, or James, I'm sorry, from Print and Play, we are doing a project with his arcade machine. We are going to be building an arcade, 2 of them actually, and giving one away in the new year. So that's another project that we've got coming up in 2019, something you guys might want to stay tuned for. We're going to have some new giveaways coming in the new year. We are going to get our merch situation sorted out. So if you guys want to get a spool 3, or not a spool 3D, but First Layer t-shirt or anything like that.
A spool 3D one if they really wanted.
Yeah, we'll get you a spool 3D one if you really want it. But if you want to get some stuff from us in the new year, we'll have some stuff set up. We will get our website finished. Right, Brian?
Sure. Why not? Anything you want.
We'll work on, him and I will work on that together. So, my friends, until next time, please remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. Until next time.